Not ready? We good? All right. Good morning. Welcome to Conservation Park at Panama City Beach, Florida. Thank you for joining me at the Adventures of Scotty Armstrong. This is episode 1, the very first official episode. Hopefully we've ironed out some of the kinks from what we learned from our pilot episode. So our big goal today is to go find an American alligator, Alligator mississippianus. I have been seeing them for the last few months at a certain spot, but there's no guarantee on an adventure. They are, I'm hoping, right where my thumb is on this map. And this is where we're at, Conservation Park. So where my thumb is where I'm hoping we're gonna find a nest. I've been seeing like 10 or 12 of them, like 1 to 2 feet alligators. I have seen a 5-foot, 6-foot alligator just kind of take a nap on the trail. So you never know. I have a fairly good feeling that we'll probably see at least one small alligator today, and we'll get some really good footage. I have seen everything you can think of here at Conservation Park. They all, especially feral pig from Europe. They're invasive here. We talked about invasives. So raccoon. I've got footage of a lot of these animals. White-tailed deer. Definitely the alligator. Tons of snakes. Plenty of frogs. Let's go on the trail a little bit, and I'll talk. I got the sunrise coming up behind me. I try to get here pretty early at Conservation Park because it's a 4-hour on-foot easy loop trail. The people who normally I see way deep in the park are bicyclists. They can knock out that 10-mile trail pretty easy. But I don't see a whole lot of people on foot. I might be the only guy that does the foot thing. So but I like I like 10-mile trails. When I go 5 miles into woods, I know, okay, I better huff it because I got 5 miles back to the car. But I see a lot more on a 10-mile trail than I do a 1-mile trail, so you know what the heck. So Conservation Park's got some interesting history. This whole area of like like 10 miles in from the Gulf of Mexico is a lot of pine flatland, and you do have your marshes and swamps that are here and there that come off, from floodplains and near the rivers. But this area has history because of the sewage, and I'm gonna get all into that. Okay, so Conservation Park is an example of when professional scientists do their research, and they have their findings, and then they propose to the city and people of legislation to make a change. So what makes Conservation Park so special, I mean, apart from all the animals, wildlife, plants, is what it does here. This is where Panama City Beach sends its treated water. It didn't used to do that. Now, I learned all this firsthand from one of the scientists who put in research. It was a joint effort, because usually in science you're not doing something solo. You're usually working in a team. Like if you ever read a published paper, it's not usually one name, it's many names that were involved to do the research. You might have a couple main writers, but it's usually a lot of folks, lots of PhDs, masters, bachelors. They're all working together, and then they all get their name on that publication with them, up the food chain. So I would say 2017-ish, spring. One of my last teachers at Gulf Coast State College was Dr. Fitzhugh. Great teacher. I had biology too with her, and we got to come to Conservation Park on a field trip, and what I learned was she studies seagrasses. She's a great teacher, great scientist. She and her colleagues who work in that area found that there were fishery declines because fish use, I'm talking about the Bay County area of our bay. So Bay County is a bay, go figure. So the fishes, the babies, come into the grasses, and then that's where they spend the early part of their life after they hatch, and then they make their way out to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, Panama City Beach was dumping their treated water. Even though it's treated, it still has nutrients. You got your nitrates and your phosphates and even though it's been treated after it's, after it was flushed and made its way to the facility, they had a pipe or whatever that was sending it to the bay. And that even treated water was having an effect on the seagrass ecosystem of our bay. So, and she spends a lot of her time scuba snorkeling in seagrasses doing research. And her and her colleagues found out the data was showing that there was a decline in numerous species. And not just fish, but whatever uses those seagrasses as a nursery. So other places, like in Tampa, in the Tampa Bay area, they noticed the same thing too. So they proposed for their treated water to get rerouted to an area like a swamp, an uphill wetland, to be dumped. Because a wetland, part of what it does is it naturally absorbs those nutrients as part of its process. The water goes through the wetland that's treated and absorbs it. So Conservation Park has got a lot of wetland. It does. And as you're walking or running throughout Conservation Park, you'll see like these zones. It's where the water stations are, where the treated water comes up and it just makes its way into the wetland. And it's okay. The wetland absorbs those nutrients and the water makes its way into the rest of the system. So the seagrass ecosystem out in the bay, it's spared. And then the animals out there, the fish and so on, their numbers are, they return to normal. They stop declining and rise up. So that's when I go, yeah, science. That's conservational biology. That's ecosystem biology. That's marine biology. It's all that coming together. It's good for everybody. So they made a new pipe and they rerouted it here. So this whole land became part of the Park City utility system, and they got trails all around it. I mean, the people who work here use these trails for their truck to go to the different pump stations. But then people like me can go see nature on top of that. So you got people who can bring their dogs here and walk or go on their bicycles, or people like me who want to go see every animal they can. But then it's also helping the seagrass ecosystem in the bay. So that's really cool. So Dr. Vitsu was really awesome. One of my last teachers before her, I think I had Professor Robinson, another great teacher. That was it. I mean, of my long butterfly in and out, butterfly effect time at Gulf Coast. I've been at a few universities, too many degree programs. That was one of my schools out of like 6 or 7. I'm done with academia. Academia, thank you. We are. But anyway, so what we're seeing here is the very start into Conservation Park, and there's some really pretty spots. They've put some money here, and I hate to say it, but you put some money in a park, you get some nice bridges, and it's like, hey, I want to go there. I want to take my dog. It's so nice. So you're gonna see a lot of this where you got the road with the pipe going with, and the dirt over the pipe, and then you'll see these constant little creeks and runoffs, and a lot of them are coming from some kind of pump station. So, and some of it's kind of nasty, but you get that kind of nasty foam buildup. But the animals, they take advantage of this. So the fish, they hit these creeks, they hit these pump station runoffs, and then when the fish and the frogs are congregated there, all the predators show up. So I see every type of reptile or fish eater or bird that eats the fish. So you'll see a lot of, I've seen tons of amphibians too in these areas. Various salamanders, two-toed amphiumias. So very cool. This is a great park. I would say 20 years ago, it didn't exist. So it was more of a recent 10 to 15 years. It was really cool. Class came out here. We even got to have one of the city park rangers that works in the city park service come out and give us a tour. Really cool. So I thought this would be a great first episode. Our goal, remember, is American alligator. I want every episode to have a goal animal. So this is probably going to be the last time we're in Bay County. I'm going to step out maybe to another state or somewhere further away for episode 2. But I want us to have a goal. We don't know what we're going to see along the way. Anything will be a bonus. But let's shoot for one really particular animal that could be like the highlight, the climax. If we're watching a movie, you have your ups and downs of your movie, but there's a point where there's a climax and then a sudden drop, like a roller coaster, where everybody can calm down in the movie theaters. And yes, people are going back to the movie theaters, thank God. I want us to have a climax. So let's go to where I think on Tree Frog Trail, we're gonna hopefully see a bunch of little gators. I have, like just a month or two ago, seen 10 or 12 all at once, and I'm just literally scanning my my video device, and I just saw, like, they're all like right there, and I get just close enough, and then they all freak out and they go swimming in the water. Very cool. I mean, they are the #1 top predator here. I mean, the American alligator. The pigs get pretty big here. I've seen I mean, they do have traps here. I've seen a couple traps where they're hoping to get these invasives, because you'll see along these trails a lot of like somebody took a shovel and started digging up the sides of the trails. That's the feral pig. Razorbacks. I mean, that's like, you know, that was my mascot in elementary school, Highland Park Razorbacks. So they are pretty tough little buggers, big. I mean, I had one guy who works here in his truck tell me he saw a 200-pounder. I mean, it's just a piggy. It's a European pig that was brought here, got out in the wild, and now it's an invasive, and they will cause degradation, devastation to an ecosystem. I mean, if they're digging up roots and they're disturbing a lot of areas, it can be bad for certain plants. So, and they don't have a whole lot of predators that can keep them in check, apart from maybe humans during a hunting season. So they're trying to get rid of the feral pig from this area. And yeah. Anyway, so I'm trying so hard not to get into the invasives thing, because I did that last time. Invasives are part of science. Invasive species are a way to study when a new alien species is in an ecosystem, and what are the impacts, what kind of data can they get from this new arrival. So I mean, to me, invasives are job security. They're going to be studying invasives forever. And also, like I said, if you work in some kind of environmental science, biological science, if you work at a park or somewhere outdoors where you have a huge area and you have a huge plan, some kind of mission plan for your park, most likely invasives are going to be in your mission plan. And boy, you can be spending a lot of money dealing with it. So to me, it's job security. So, all right. I don't want to talk about invasives. I could talk about invasives all day. Moving on. So this is a really pretty trail at a conservation park. It is so nice. So this is going through that pine land. So uphill, flat pine land. So you're obviously wetlands down low, but up high when it's really flat, it's usually sandy soil, and you'll find a lot of, like, the big one here is the longleaf pine, which they're trying to reintroduce here. That's a big one. Remember, it was logged for centuries, used for the log industry. They're trying to bring the longleaf pine back here because that brings, I mean, they're trying to hopefully bring back a few woodpecker species. They're not doing too good. That only, according to the science, prefers certain trees like the longleaf. So you would think, though, some of these animals would try to adapt and find new particular trees. I get it. The longleaf is very tall. If you want to get away from a predator, or you have a specific height that you want to put your nests, like for some of these like cockaded or plated woodpeckers, there's a bunch. Longleaf's a good one to go. But if they all have been chopped down, or a lot of the ancestral stands are gone, but not every species can adapt so quickly, and then unfortunately then that species might be in the decline because it's finding harder and harder good areas to find to nest. So but anyway, so uphill flat pine land, and when you have a depression, you start getting lower to a creek or a river because water goes downhill. You get into the wetlands, and what we have come up here, you'll find a lot of cypress swamps. So a cypress tree, it can live in inundated water. What the heck is inundated? Inundated conditions. That means typically for the most part of the year, it's underwater. It's flooded, or it has that wetland quality where the soil is constantly saturated. So enough water drops and stays on the ground. It doesn't move. So cypress trees, like many other wetland trees, have adapted to live in inundated conditions. They have big, wide root buttresses, or you'll see like how they get wider at the base, and those are ways for it to adapt to those being underwater conditions. You'll see where those roots, where they come up. There's all different types of ways these plants try, like they have air bladders in their leaves or in their roots. They find ways to deal with the fact that their roots are constantly underwater. Whereas trees that are higher upland, they can't handle those conditions. They never adapted to that. So they usually, their seed dispersal happens away from wetland. But this is the swamp. Oh yeah, look how green all that is. This is really green. You got your various duckweeds and other types of ponds muck. There's a lot of duckweed species. But, I mean, you've got your cattails, which I couldn't remember the name last time. It's a cattail. And there's a couple native and a couple invasive. But this is what I love about Conservation Park. It's like swampy. So, and I would love to go to Okefenokee Swamp over in Georgia, because that's a good swamp. So anyway, so this is like how a lot of the park is, where you're gonna find a wetland here and there, and it's on the map. It'll tell you, it's really a beautiful map. It tells you like where the water is going to be and where their pump stations are. And so you can kind of know, because sometimes these trails, they're completely underwater when we have a really bad rain. So I tend to go home with pretty wet shoes, but that's okay. I'm used to going home with really wet shoes. You just need to have a bunch of pairs of shoes to back it up, you know, just put one out in the sun, and you have another one for backup. I always have wet shoes, but that's fine. You do what I do, you're gonna have water up to your knees. So, but I just wanted us to kind of get a nice little introduction to Conservation Park. It's absolutely gorgeous, and no one's here at 6:30 in the morning. It's just me and the mosquitoes, which are so sucking my blood, and I put mosquito spray on, and it's not working. Okay, so you see that? You see these trees are completely underwater. It's about 1 foot to 2 feet. I have seen people that work here that have to go and tend to the swamps and do certain jobs. I mean, they're up to their knees, they're up to their waist high. The guy that I talked to says he sends his guys out there. They come across moccasins and water moccasins, and you name it, every type of swamp creature. But there's a lot of variety of wetland trees that live, like the bald cypress is a common one. We're looking at a few of those. But there's other trees that can handle being in fully inundated conditions, and there's even a scale for it. There's a scale for how a plant can tolerate being underwater, and I believe 5 is like wetland inundated, and then a 1 would be needs to be in dry conditions all year, and then 3 would be in the middle, can kind of handle either way, which is really adaptive, because if you have a very seasonal flux of dry and wet. But so anyway, I just love this trail. This is a great boardwalk. Whoever built this, good job. Lots of, I see a whole lot of spiders here too, like the big golden silk spiders. I tend to grab them and like let them play on my hand, and I got some great photos of them. I tend to come across a few people with arachnophobia, and you want to freak somebody out, just get a golden silk spider and just like, because it's so big. They're a big orb weaver spider. Pretty typical here. We get the banana, what they call a banana spider, and a few of the other more common ones you're gonna see. But the ones I like to see or find are the golden silk, big white, varying red and orange bands. It's fairly 3-4 inches wide, and make big webs, and you'll usually find one with a couple, and then another couple more around it. So anyway, and if you're in Florida and you're used to driving on a 4-wheeler and you're going down the trail real fast, they come and smack you right in the face, and you're picking spider webs and spiders off your face. So it's just make sure you have your visor on. But anyway, so it's just a really awesome trail. I'm only giving this introduction. I'm gonna have to turn it off, and I'll catch you on the next, like, something specific that I find, because there's just no way. I got 2 hours to get into where I think the alligators are. So if I find something that's really interesting, I will turn the camera back on, and we'll get a little interpretation from me. But this is day 1. We'll do day 2 tomorrow. I try to do this on a weekend and do 2 days because you don't know how the weather's gonna be. It might be like really rainy, it might be awesome. Or the animals, they just might, you know, they might be sleeping in on Saturday and then Sunday they're just like, you're up and moving. You never know. So if we do it on a couple days, at least 2, we can increase our chances of at least putting together some good interpretations. And we'll try to keep this video to 90 minutes this time, not 150. I just had so much fun with that pilot episode. I wanted to put everything online. Apparently, uploading to YouTube takes like 2 days if you have 150 minutes. So, we'll keep it a more 90. I mean, I want you guys to feel like you're on a really long adventure, but I don't want you to fall asleep either. It's just beautiful. Like, this is good alligator country, dude. Good alligator country. So, all these cattails. We talked about the Spanish moss. It's up this bald cypress. Very cool. Okay, so this trail is just about done. And then it gets back more into flat pine land. We're gonna see just the pine trees, scrub pines, slash pines, more of that saw palmetto that we talked about. But just trying to think of something, and it just kind of like, oh, Conservation Park tries to get permits to get various projects going here. And when I was here, they had a fenced area for the gopher tortoise. Gopher tortoise. Okay, that could be a whole episode on itself. I have not seen one here in a while, but they used to have 3 or 4, I think maybe 5. And they had it, yeah, that is a threatened species. You have to get a permit if you want to do any kind of conservation work with them through Fish and Wildlife. And they have the land here to do it. So what they did was you get like a 2-foot fence. It's made out of that kind of plastic burlap material. You put in your stakes, and then we made like a 2-3 foot tall fence. I actually got to help out. It was cool. Over your acre or whatever it is. And this is your perimeter fence. And then inside is very sandy conditions, and they had gopher tortoises here, which is a fairly good sized tortoise. That's long-lived. Tortoises, they live a long time, and it's a very important species. It's not an apex predator, but the one thing I really love about it is it's a keystone species, and that's a whole nother episode. I don't want to get too into it because I've done a lot of research papers on keystone species, and gopher tortoises are one of my favorite because keystone species impact other species, many other species, and gopher tortoise is one of them. So I would like to kind of find a gopher tortoise and make that like an episode, because once we find them, usually when you do find them, it's because you found their burrows. They make a ton of burrows and more burrows. They're burrowing machines, and they were here, but I don't think we're gonna find them, but that's okay. We'll save it for another adventure. Tortoises, a few of them, some of the big ones in the world, they're burrowers, like the African spur tortoise, aka sulcata tortoise. When an animal makes burrows and then makes another burrows, like it leaves its old ones, it's provided just a new den, a new habitat, a new home for other animals. That's pretty beneficial, and it's not really doing it for the other animals. I doubt it's in its mind it's going, boy, I really want to help my community, all my frog friends and all my snakes and my fellow tortoises. No, probably, I mean, they're kind of probably just doing what tortoises do, and they like to dig, and that gives them, you know, it fills their instinctive nature. But it's just a secondary benefit to the ecosystem they're in. And a lot of keystone species probably have, they sound like they're probably trying to help their ecosystem, but it just ends up being a secondary, on the side benefit to everybody else. So one way you have a keystone species is if a animal that is a keystone species somehow, whatever way, gets removed from its ecosystem, other animals in the ecosystem start declining. That's a good way you have a keystone species. So like in the coral reefs, I said I wasn't gonna get into keystone species, and look at me, I got into keystone species. If like in the coral reefs, if you have a shark, for instance, very important to the reef system, and if it declines, if it gets removed for whatever reason, poaching, pollution, yada yada, they notice other species start declining or even disappearing. So that shark was a keystone. When they come back and they put them back in the ecosystem, through whatever conservation effort, other species start to return. Another good one is a gray wolf of Yellowstone Park. Even though I know up in that area, some people don't like the wolves. But the wolf was a good example in the Yellowstone area because it ended up being a good example of keystone species because other species came back because what wolves do to the large herbivores and how they drive them around and help, because large herbivores will knock back certain vegetation or alter the habitat in a way that impacts other animals. So if you put the wolves back in, they notice smaller mammals, the smaller mid-sized mammals, they were returning, among other things. So, you know, and the wolves are just doing what they're doing. They weren't going in there going, oh, I can't wait to bring back the mink and the beaver, and you know, they were like, I'm hungry, I want to eat like, you know, an elk. But what they were doing ended up having that secondary effect, which I think is cool. And I could go study keystone species till the cows come home. But all right, we are done with this awesome boardwalk. I mean, just look at that. What a nice boardwalk. All right, we are gonna go this way, but we'll save the gopher tortoise for another episode. It's a really cool animal. I mean, yeah. All right, I'm gonna say goodbye to y'all for a little bit, and I will catch you on the next really exciting plant or animal that I catch. My eye. I mean, remember, yeah, okay, you know. So I just wanted to highlight this area because this was our gopher tortoise. Just behind this sign was where we had the fencing for the gopher tortoises. And actually, if you came down this way just a little bit, there was a sign that said gopher tortoise crossing. You know, like the yellow triangle signs, the stop sign looking deal that has the gopher tortoise symbol on it. But I don't see that no more. That's like, what? Oh man, the good old days. But anyway, so right in here, it's really scrubby and like really like white sand. And the gopher tortoises love it. And I mean, look, we got cacti here. We got the prickly pear. So you could have come in here and seen a lot of these holes. About anywhere from 6 to 12 inches wide or bigger, and that was the gopher tortoises doing their thing. So if you see a lot of, I don't think they're here anymore, but this is like an old one. That hole right there was a gopher tortoise hole, and it's going underneath this this sedge here, and they're just always digging, and you would find these spots where this loose sand right here has been brought up from the gopher tortoise activity, and that's a hole right there too. Looks like somebody marked it. But that's a gopher tortoise hole, and this was its blowout from all its work. And this whole area was fenced in, but I guess their permit was up. I mean, permits have to get renewed, and that costs money, or maybe the project wasn't working to their desire. I mean, I think they were trying to breed the numbers back up. So anyway, I hope more projects like this continue. Gopher tortoise is an awesome animal. That will be definitely a video all in itself. Just go find a gopher tortoise, and preferably like springtime will be a good time to do that. But yeah, there's just such an important animal, and they live only in the southeastern United States. So Florida's got them, and some of their neighboring states have them in those sandy conditions, those sandy flat pine conditions. They like it dry and arid, and even though Florida has a reputation of being pretty humid, you get out away from the coast, it gets pretty, you feel like you're in a desert. There's some places where you see the prickly pear growing and the yucca, and you feel like you're in Arizona, where you're gonna find another tortoise, like over the desert tortoise out west. So America doesn't have a whole lot of tortoise species, but we have the desert tortoise, we have the gopher tortoise. But I love the gopher tortoise. I grew up with that. That's an awesome animal. I have seen many of them. I wish I could see more of them. Unfortunately, back in the day, as I was told from some of the old timers, the gopher tortoise was eaten it tastes pretty good, I guess. During the Depression, when times were tough, if there was an animal that could get you a dinner, you would eat it. And I mean, I heard stories of the South during the Depression. They would eat possum, they would eat turtles, they would definitely eat gopher tortoises. You know, you make your tortoise soup or whatnot. And when you have a species that could take anywhere from 10, 12 years, 8 years, depending on, it's the size of the female, to lay her first clutch, and you start really hunting the animal, that animal is in big trouble. It can decline very quickly because it doesn't reproduce very quickly. They can live long, but it could take 10 years just to get a female ready to go. And if, you know, that's a good way for an animal to near extinction, to be endangered. So, I don't think the possums are in, the possums are not in trouble. The Virginia possum that we have here. But the gopher tortoises became threatened because loss of habitat, and they were, for a while there, they were taken for their meat. So conservation efforts are trying to help them out, but tortoises take time. It's not like a snake or a bird that after a year or two, or a rodent after 30 days, is ready to breed, and breed in high numbers. So it's just, you know, it takes time, and it takes a lot of patience and passion from the conservational biologist side of things to help to bring that animal back. So you need land. This is a good place, lots of land. You need a bunch of adult breeding pairs, or a boy with a bunch of girls, lucky guy. But anyway, you gotta, you know, it's gonna take some time. So anyway, I just wanted to show that. We're gonna continue on. I'll catch you in just a second. We're looking at a Lanceleaf Arrowhead. It's a seagrass, or a water plantain. And I got one with a little wasp bee on it. All right. Very cool.
Bella. Yeah, it's a pretty morning. Okay. Do we take the left pill? Do we take the right? Do we take the red pill or the blue pill? Or in this case, the red pill and the yellow pill? Today, it's the yellow pill.
I think we've got raccoons here. That was a blue pond hawk, if you saw it. They're really awesome. And they eat mosquitoes, among other things. That is a blue pond hawk. I'd like to thank this guy for being cooperative. What a great animal. Arthropod, invertebrate. Dragonflies, live in that family with the damselflies. Really cool. Okie dokie. Thanks, dude. Now they come in green and blue. Common pond hawk. And they eat various flies, including mosquitoes, which are in the fly family. Okay, welcome back. I've been doing this for a little bit, and we're getting closer and closer to the American Alligator spot that I think we're going to have success. Now, I wanted to mention our rat snake in the area. So we have this rat snake subspecies, or I guess locality, called the white oak rat snake. If you're in the panhandle of Florida, you're going to see a rat snake, kind of a silvery light gray background with dark blotches. It's subspecies of the gray rat snake, gray rat snake or locality. And the gray rat snake is really just part of the eastern rat snake or black rat snake, just a darker, grayer, sootier animal. Just like if you go more southern from the eastern rat snake's range, it starts becoming the yellow rat snake, and then the Everglades rat snake. The reason I showed these roots on the ground is because the oaks that we have around here with the very white outer bark layer, and even the roots, like during the sunny days, these roots get sun bleached, and the white oak rat snake blends into with them very well. So in our area, with time, this is where we're going to bring in evolution, folks. The animals that blended in their environment survived. They're predators, because rat snakes do have a few predators, like bird of prey, like your good old red-tailed hawk. They had a successful pattern that, through mutation and many other wonderfully big science words, it acquired its white oak look, that very light color, compared to like the gray rat snakes of Alabama, which are very dark, very sooty. The ones here, that ended up being beneficial. Evolution doesn't always mean as an animal evolves, it's going to be beneficial. Evolution is just a process. As they evolve, certain traits become the common trait within a population. They're passed from mate to mate and from generation to generation. There is a really pretty moth right there. Oh, and he's out. And he's back here. And he's out. Anyway, so with time, our locality here, the white oak rat snake, is common. It now is passed on to all the next generation. See these white roots on the ground? Well, a white oak rat snake, as it crawls across the ground, it could just sit there and sunbathe, take in the sun. They're exothermic, which reptiles, they need the sun to take in sun and get their metabolic processes going, unlike mammals who can generate their own internal heat. So the white oak rat snake is definitely found in Conservation Park, and I have seen them here and there. I haven't seen them of late. We've been having a lot of rain. we're in the getting to the peak there of hurricane season, but they are here, and they blend in so well with all these white roots and oak trees that I see, and that's where it got its name, white oak rat snake. But they're in the Pantherithius genus, so that means they're close relatives to the Texas rat snake and the eastern black rat snake and yellow rat snake down central Florida. Works its way up and down East Coast. So really interesting. Scientists are definitely having a fun time with that group, because they're kind of saying it's all one animal, or at least all the eastern. You either have an eastern rat snake or the western, which folks like me who kind of get frustrated with all the make up your mind when it comes to taxonomy, the family tree that scientists like to create to kind of get a better understanding of how animals evolved and had a common ancestor, and they make these trees, but the trees change, and they've been changing for the last, I don't know, 200 years. If you look at some of these animals, species and genus, and we went into that, Carolinius, they have, God, their first names are very different, and they were usually named after the scientists. You know, you'll get a certain scientist, his name pops up in a lot of animals because he was out there in the 1850s finding everything he could and naming them after him. And over time, those names of those animals have changed, especially as DNA. Oh my God, here comes the DNA. So, diribose nucleic acid, dude. So DNA. DNA is that really cool coating inside your nucleus and all your cells that make you. And it's like your programming. Well, with DNA advancements in science, they now have a better understanding of where to put those animals on that family tree, on the taxonomic tree. And boy, do scientists love making taxonomic trees. So, yeah, so the eastern rat snake has definitely, it's one of many that has kind of altered and changed. DNA's been responsible for that. There's a committee out there, a group of guys, scientists, ladies, all of them. Oh, raccoon. Definitely have some raccoons going on in Conservation Park. But they decide on what the whole world will be calling these animals using Latin. So that's every scientist in the whole world. And the committee hopefully is well-rounded in a nice international pool of various cultures, hopefully. They're not all like from people from, I don't know, New York, whatever, England. Hopefully there's a nice international pool. The point is I don't try to get too locked down with that, because all I know in 10 years, what I'm telling you has already changed. Some of these animals have like 20 names to them. And I like snakes. I like reptiles. I mean, there's plenty of lizards I've been seeing. One lizard I've been trying to find on these pine trees is the southeastern fence lizard. They blend in perfectly with these the bark of these pine trees. But there's mammals, birds. We just saw a really awesome oyster fungi that was living on a tree. There's so many great things you can see here. Plants, flowers, all of it. All these have a species and genus, and it changes. So I will put whatever is the most common name of that species down in the description area of the YouTube episode. Use it to go find it, but then, you know, you can look at the history of its taxonomy, and you can see it's changed. You can take it all the way back to like the first scientists who discovered it for the modern world. It was always there, but it was discovered by science. Science made it important because they put a name on it, even though it was there for thousands and millions of years. Well, some animals maybe haven't been around for millions of years, but you know my point. Evolution is a process through time, and you're taking it back to a common ancestor before it split. And evolution is a whole episode, just like invasive species. So we're at a very important crossroad here, so I'm going to stop, and then we'll get our bearings. Conservation Park, love you. Okay, folks, welcome back. So this map's going to be basically telling us where our next spot is. We are here, and I know I've been seeing alligators right here. So you normally go all around, but we're going to go straight shot at the alligators, and hopefully they are doing their thing this morning, which is like, well, sunbathing, and then go find their fish, their turtle, their frog, whatever they can get in their mouth that's appropriate size for that size animal. But I have seen them over here, and when I was on the back far end of the park, I saw one sitting, a 6-footer sitting on the trail, like, you know, he was taking a nap and he didn't want me to bother him. But what's great about this park is there's signs, among other things. There's a lot of great things, but you have these kiosks, and they're all marked on the map just excellently. Whoever designed this park, kudos. But look at the animals. It even tells you what you're probably going to see. So white-tailed deer we saw at St. Andrews. We're looking for the gator. Coyote is technically an invasive species. They only used to live in the southwestern United States, but now they've crossed the Mississippi, and yeah, well, their range has changed. There's that wild boar I was talking about, the feral pig. I have yet to see wild turkey here. That would be awesome. We just saw raccoon tracks. Those woodpeckers with the red tops. The plated, the cockaded, they have more of a crown going on. We saw an osprey at St. Andrews, and then that looks like a copperhead. That's a venomous snake, and we might have a couple episodes where our main mission is to find a specific venomous snake. Venomous snakes, you need to respect. I'm just going to say that right now. And we've got 6 species here in Florida. The cottonmouth, the eastern coral snake, the eastern diamondback, the copperhead, the pygmy rattlesnake, and a very southern species, subspecies of the timber rattlesnake known as the canebrake, which we hardly get a bit of their range over where Alabama hits the Florida border. Those are the 6 species of venomous snake you're going to find. 5 of them are the pit viper family. One of them is like an elaphid, the coral. That's getting more into like the sea crates and cobra world and all that. I have seen many venomous snakes here at Conservation Park. Typically what I see is water moccasins and pygmy rattlesnakes. Pygmy meaning small, and they are itty-bitty. I have seen an 8-foot eastern diamondback, not here, but that would not be a pygmy. That would be very big. That's like the biggest venomous snake in the United States. So, and there are bigger pit vipers than the eastern diamondback, but for Florida, he wins the prize. He or she, well, it's gonna be a he, well, anyway. All right, so we got to go while we still have good battery for day 1 and go see if the gators are at their spot. Evolution, I just wanted to say, it was part of my master's degree. Oh my God, my full degree is ecology and evolutionary and organismal biology. So you're looking at organisms, how they live in an ecosystem, and the evolutionary processes that brought them to that point. How does that ecosystem function? What's the evolution that is driving these animals, or what drove them to that point? Organisms make up populations. Or organisms make species, and species add to a population. Populations of different species give you an ecosystem. There's many ecosystems in one state, in one region of a continent. Ecosystems all throughout the world make up a global ecosystem. And yes, the globe talks to itself. What happens in Africa happens here in Florida. And what I'm talking about is hurricanes. Hurricanes are coming off the southern area of Africa. They work their way up the west side, the West African coast, and they fly over in our direction. Where they land, well, no one knows until it's go time. So Florida, we get hurricanes, and they're coming from the other side of the Atlantic, thousands of miles away. So what happens on one side of the world? Yes, it does impact the other side. A tsunami in Japan can be, its aftermath can be felt off the California coast. So, you know, global ecosystem, very cool. Got to know a lot of languages, man. It's like 100, 150 languages, and, you know, you got to, like, be able to talk to those folks in those countries, but those folks in those countries are collecting data. They're studying their ecosystems. Their data gets put into a system, and then scientists can talk to each other and collaborate and go, oh, you're finding those findings in your country? Oh, we're finding those findings in our country too. Do you want to, like, try our test? Let's try your test. And after a little bit of time, they come to a consensus. And in science, that's tough because competition is for real in science. They love to compete. They want to prove the other guy wrong. I just read your paper. I'm gonna go do your science, your test. I'm gonna go do it in my area, and I'm gonna see if you're wrong. They love that. It's like what drives scientists. Well, it's not the only thing that drives them, but it's definitely a driving force. But then if the scientist goes and does the test, and it comes out the same kind of results, and you keep repeating the test over and over, and the results keep coming out the same, it's science. We might actually have a really good consensus. So when a scientific community starts agreeing on something, I would totally recommend that you listen. Just saying. I would listen. So, but yes, there are the occasional science moments where somebody does go and reproduces the test, whatever they are doing. And it doesn't have to be biology, it can be physics, it could be geology, it could be many different fields, but that's the idea. And then they might actually prove that person wrong, and then they publish, and then you have to go retest, and then, oh my God, somebody didn't check their data, and they might have to get a paper retracted. That is like the you do not want to happen in science be all of be all. I mean, like, if your publication gets retracted, change your name, run to another country. No, it's not good. Whatever you put out in the public that's going to get published in a journal, science journal, they're going to look and read and sip their tea, and whatever publication you are going to do, you want to make sure everything is, you cross the T's, dot the I's. Because if you're wrong, you might not have a job next year. So it's like the in Super Bowl, and that running, the end, he doesn't catch that touchdown in the end zone during Super Bowl. He might not have a job next year. In science, publishing something that's not right, not correct, you did not cross the T's, you did not dot the I's. Not all your data was done right, not all your math was done right. That could be bad. So they want to be absolutely sure that what they're putting out in the world is the best science that they can provide. And scientists take it, they take it very personal, very serious, very professional, that they want to do the science. They don't want to falsify the data. Oh my God, if a scientist falsifies data. I'm not even going there. All right, but anyway, because that work is going to be a representation of them. Now, what I'm doing here is a little bit of art with science. I'm trying to do 3 or 4 things at once here, but I will give you the best science I can with the hammy artist type folk I am. I just did a painting. It came out really good. I got it in my Panama City local gallery area. Very awesome, giant panda. But anyway, I'm trying to give a show with a guy who had training in science to somebody who maybe isn't interested in science or is afraid of science or is intimidated by all the guys with all those letters behind their name. I don't have I have MS, not multiple sclerosis, Masters of Science. But anyway, I don't like using it. I'm Scotty. Scotty's fine. But anyway, I will do my very best, and I know when I'm wrong. And what I'm doing here is more of an adventure show with interpretations and me giving you maybe some insight on some things that I picked up working with the professionals, working with the PhDs and the masters folks and people who work for associations. And yeah, and there is a process. You know, you get into the work and you collect data, you come up with tests, you write. Oh my God, do you write? You write so much. You write and you publish and you go and repeat and you go do talks and seminars and you tell everybody about your work and you have to beg the government. Beg is kind of, well, it's kind of like begging. You're writing to appeal to the board to give you grant money, but in my opinion, you're begging. Please give me the $1 million. I must go study this new piece of bacteria or lint in my belly hole. No, a lot of this grant money is going to some great things like cure for cancer or, saving an entire ecosystem because man put a strip mine next to it or the weather is destroyed, mudslides, whatever it may be. So the grant money is important. There's only so much grant money. So you have to appeal and do your very best to get to woo them, to win them, to prove to them that they should give you the grant money. That's not easy. It's not easy. But if you get grant money, you go do the science. Like there was probably a grant to get Conservation Park built. So that's science. I mean, if you just, lay it out, it's still a little complicated, but it's not, it's not as complicated as, maybe somebody in science would make it. There's even an art to science. When I heard that, I was like, oh, really? And then I went, not really. It's so much methodology. And yes, I know some art mediums have a methodology, but science is science. I guess there's an art to science, but it's so methodical. Like you got to do step 1, step 2, step 3. When you write your papers, yeah. Okay. So I did my whole thing. We'll talk about evolution in the future. It's not a big scary thing. But it's a very common concept in biology. And the DNA stuff, all the DNA they're doing, it's only fortifying the theories and the concepts and everything around evolution. It's actually taken us in new places. And science with the technology and the DNA, it's just, yeah. So we'll talk about evolution further along. It's a process. Things evolve. They might evolve to great prosperity. They might evolve to their extinction. And most species that have ever existed on this planet have gone extinct. So evolution is not the be-all. It just helps in a way how you look at it. It's not really alive. It doesn't have a mind. The environment puts certain pressures and the species respond to those pressures. And the competition and other things. And what's actually in their DNA? Is their DNA strong? Do they have too much inbreeding? There's so many things to it. But it's a process. It's not alive choosing what is going to be what. It's just, it takes time and it's a process that goes through time. And I'm still rambling on about evolution. I said we talk about it later. I'm still talking about it. Okay, I'm going to stop because I really can make a whole episode about evolution. There's a lot to it. All right, let's go find some gators. I'll see you guys in just a little bit. Okay, folks. Well, do you remember I was talking about the venomous snakes of Conservation Park? Well, we have one of the most common ones I see in this area, and that's a water moccasin. He's right there in front of me, about 15 feet up and on the left. I'm going to give him some distance, but I want you guys to see his threat display. Cottonmouth, water moccasins get their name because they display a white mouth as a threat display. He's saying, I am dangerous, I am venomous, back off. He does not rattle a tail like a rattlesnake does. There he is. It's a pit viper, it's kind of girthy. That looks like a pretty boy. Can you see that guy right in front of me? He's got his head up. He's looking right at me. He's about 20 inches, give or take. Girthy animal. Loves fish, rodents, frogs. This is exactly what I mean about see what I do, but don't do what I do. This animal is, it won't probably kill a person, but you're not going to have a good day if you get bitten by this snake. It's not, there is a chance of lethal venomation. Oh, okay, so he's displaying his white mouth. There's a potential for injury here, serious injury, but maybe not as bad as an eastern diamondback. Because some of the pit vipers, you can get bit and you probably have a high chance of surviving, like a copperhead. Cottonmouth can be a very bad day. You got to get to the hospital, and they'll give you this stuff called crowfab. We don't want to test that. All right, so this guy, he's got his mouth open. Look at that beautiful pattern down his back. Very pretty. He's looking right at me. I have seen them from baby all the way to adult. So he got on this path thinking he would sunbathe here. Now, I don't want to stress him out any more than I need to. Oh, there's that white display. You see how white that is? That's where they get their name, Cottonmouth. So that's his type of rattle, is his mouth. And he evolved over time, that behavior and that white mouth. So I'm fairly close. And I don't want to push my buttons here. Oh, there's the white display. He's saying, but he doesn't look like he is too interested in moving. He's kind of like, hey, I'm trying to sunbathe here. I'm trying to get my day going. Can you just move along, you guy with a camera? Now, if he was S'd out, ready to strike, we're in a increased chance of problems. But I am slowly moving past him. There's that threat display with the white mouth. And that was our first really awesome, healthy specimen of a water moccasin, aka Cottonmouth. Look how big and girthy he is. That is a healthy moccasin. You can see his fangs right there. That's a pit viper. He's got long needle-like fangs, hypodermic needles, and he's got 2 venom sacs, one behind each fang up there at the upper lip, and where he injects his venom into his prey, and with enough time, with the hemotoxin, that's for blood, breaks down tissue, he kills his prey, and then he goes and consumes it. And he's been eating really well, I can tell. Lots of fat on that body. So he's probably, oh, I got a blue pond hawk. Will you stop photobombing me here, man? This is the moccasins moment. All right, dude, what a beautiful water moccasin. I hope we find the gators, because what a great way to end day one. We get this beautiful water moccasin plus the American alligators. All right, dude, thank you for being on camera. I appreciate you. Good luck. Avoid any predators that might think you're a meal. And please do not get that close. Look from afar. Don't do what I do. See what I do, but don't do what I do. That was my liability cautionary tale. All right, I'll catch you guys near the American Alligator. Duck family. And my trail is underwater. Guess what, folks? Wet socks for today. Where'd those ducks go? I saw me a family of ducks. Quack, quack, quack. They're out of here. Wow, they didn't mess around. Run! Scott's coming! You gotta get out of here, he's gonna film you! Looks like deer. White-tailed deer. Awesome. Okay, we've arrived. This has been a proven alligator sighting, a sight spot many times now. I have seen as many as 12 little babies. I'm gonna shut up now because I'm going to be quiet because I might startle them. Let's see what we can see. Okay, I'm gonna get as close as I can. He's maybe 2 feet. He's a little guy. Do you see it? Right there. Well, that was our American alligator. Now I have seen 12 in this area. They're probably all related from the same clutch. I've seen like 4 right there, and then when I came upon them, I am going to share that video so you guys can get the experience that I had. It was pretty amazing. There's another little blue pond hawk right in front of me, the little dragonfly. So that gator is using this muck. He's using this cover, the duckweed and the muck that's on top of this runoff here, this creek. It goes underneath the trail here. The service access comes out over here. I have seen gators sunbathe here and definitely right over in this area. And gators, unlike crocodilians, kind of a dark gray slated color. Crocodilians, like your crocs, they can have more of a greenish tint to them. They have lighter greens and grays, whereas our American alligator has got more of a dark, especially as they age. They start off black with like pretty bands on them, helps them camo, but as they age, they lose their bands and become very dark, very dark gray sleety color. And I've seen them all here. I mean, I would see heads all over, and definitely over here the family likes to hang out, and I would see like 4 or 5 of them right here. And when I would get as close as I possibly could, they're taking in their sun, and when I finally reached their safety bubble, one would go in, and then that would be a cue to all the other ones, and they would all go in. And I have that on camera, and I'm going to put that stock footage into this video because I promised American alligators, and all we got was a 6-inch little head, and he flipped out and went into the water, and he left his little splash zone right there where he left the duckweed exposed. So we saw an American alligator. It's not, it's just a baby. It's not like an 8-footer, but it's a start. And we are nearing October, and as it gets cooler, they're going to start being less frequent, at least on my adventures. Some folks might have just that right pond where they just hang out all year. No, but that's not me. So yeah, it's very, very good spot. And you'll just see little heads. You'll just see little heads popping up. They have their nose and their eyes just coming above the water. So if I was a deer, if I was a small deer or